Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel.
Okay.
We got some juicy stuff.
So today is the day we're recording, and today is also the day that the news of James Gunn's DCU, the plan that he has, it was made public. He released a video, all the trades, got the information, and we figured it was too juicy to to let alone to
It's
let
too
sit.
fresh right now. It's too
Yeah,
fresh. It's like, you know what? We got to talk about it a little bit.
yeah, to let it sit. So by the time you folks see this, the news will have already been out for at least 2 or 3 days. And
Mhm.
but we wanted to get you our thoughts as soon as possible. But before we did that, I wanted to let you guys know we appreciate all the support. Please give us a like, a share, and subscribe if you like what we're doing. And also, we also appreciate the comments that you leave for us as well. So thank you for that. So we're just going to jump right into things here.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, as you folks know, James Gunn is, along with Peter Safran, they're the new co-leads of DC Studios. So,
Yup.
the new slate, so to speak, was revealed. It is called Chapter One: Gods and Monsters, Chapter
Gods
One.
and Monsters, Chapter 1.
So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna run down the slate that he announced. It's 10 different projects,
Yes,
and
yeah.
we're going to try not to interject too much because we want to give you our thoughts,
Hmm.
just to organically, once we get through this list here. So we have an animated series called Creature Commandos, and that's not something we're too familiar with, but
No.
it's going to be written by Gunn. It's already in production. After that, there is a spin-off of Peacemaker, which is also a spin-off of Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and it's Waller, starring
Hmm.
Viola Davis.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we're going to get a show with her on her own. So that's pretty cool that we're going to continue seeing Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. And then after that is where things start getting interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a Superman Legacy. And this
Hmm.
is going to be our introduction to the new actor that is playing Superman. And it is going to be a younger version of Superman, but not an origin story. He
Yeah.
was specific about that. And the release date for that is planned in 2025. And this is where things are really going to start looking like a reboot, so to speak. That's what the trades say. The next project planned was Lanterns. This is a brand new show, not to be confused with the Green Lantern show that they did have planned, the Green Lantern Corps.
Hmm.
And it's going to be undergone, obviously. And they're saying here in the vein of True Detective, but terrestrial based. And the two prominent lanterns being featured are going to be Hal Jordan and John Stewart.
Finally.
Two very popular lanterns. John Stewart in particular
Oh, yeah.
from the Justice League Unlimited days. So that's what's next there. Then we have a movie called The Authority,
Hmm.
and this is based on the Image Wildstorm property um, that was created by Jim Lee. And Ricardo and I haven't really read up on the Authority too much.
Hmm.
I know that um, if you've read Superman, that he faced the Elite. And what DC did was, before they were able to get that property, from Wildstorm, they created the Elite so Superman could face the Elite. And there is speculation that the reason why the Authority movie is happening is because maybe James Gunn wants to have his Superman face the Authority. So
Hmm.
that's just some speculation there. Then we have Paradise Lost. This is the Amazon show, not to be confused with the Amazon show that was going to happen before.
Yeah.
And this is a Game of Thrones style drama set on Themyscira, Wonder Woman's birthplace, and it's going to take place before the events of Wonder Woman. So apparently, this is way before Diana was born. And once again, this is we're gonna give you our thoughts, folks, on
Yep.
these projects as best as we can. The next project announced is a movie called The Brave and the Bold, and it is a Batman story featuring an older Batman with a Robin named Damian Wayne, his biological son.
Yup.
So it looks like we skipped over a few Robins and we were going straight to
quite a few.
Yeah, we're going to the son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul. So yeah, so that's what he has planned there. Brave and the Bold. And once again, apparently we will have a new actor playing Batman in this role. Not to be confused with Robert Pattinson's Batman set in the Reeves verse for the Batman Part 2, which is
Part 2.
Yeah, that's something else that's going on too. Okay, and then we have Booster Gold. This is a project that Warner Brothers has been wanting to do for a while now. Warner Brothers Discovery. It never took off, but now it's going to take off under James Gunn. This is right in the vein of Gunn stuff. Those, if you will, B-listers and C-listers, lesser known heroes. Booster Gold tends to be on the comedic side, so right in Gunn's wheelhouse. So that's as far as that goes. Then we have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And it's supposed to be a different take on Superman's cousin, Supergirl. And apparently they said that we're going to see the differences between Superman and Supergirl. And let's see here. I don't want to read the article word for word, but it's not the Supergirl we're used to. That's what they're saying here.
Yeah.
And it's too much of a tangent for me to get into that one right now. So
it's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to take away from that one. So we'll come back to that as well. And lastly, we have Swamp Thing. And it is a movie. It's a horror film. And apparently this will be the end of the first chapter of James Gunn's new DC Studios slate, Gods and Monsters Chapter 1.
Yep.
Oh, boy.
There is a lot here.
There is a lot to get through. So
yes, there is.
Separate from this, he announced, Gunn, that anything outside of the main DCU continuity will be considered Elseworlds. And that's where the Batman, the Reeves verse, as we call it, the Batman universe is going to be an Elseworld story. It's going to be its own thing. There's a Penguin show. And then now the Batman Part 2, also planned for 2025. It's going to be a big year.
Yeah.
And then the Joker sequel, featuring Harley. It's Lady Gaga's Harley.
Lady Gaga, baby.
Joaquin Phoenix coming back. So once again, doesn't have to do with anything else. An Elseworld story. And then there's another Elseworld story.
Yes, there is.
Featuring an African-American Superman. And we don't know. It's gone through a few directors. It's going through some. It's in the writing stages right now. And apparently this actor will be separate from James Gunn's actor. So it's another thing altogether. And we don't know if that's going to go through. They're talking about it. It's been getting talked about. I think the rumor was everybody wants Michael B. Jordan to play the role.
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan's name's been attached to this for a long time. I think
he even said it too. He might have been attached as a producer. So
I watched him on a talk show once talk about it, where he was like, "Oh, he'd like to do it because there is a black Superman. Like there is,
right? There's a few of them actually. There's a few of them, but yeah. So, oh man, so this is going to be, and mind you, we still have to get through this year.
Yes,
we have Shazam: Fury of the Gods in March. We have The Flash in June. Blue Beetle in August, and then we're going to close out the year with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in December. So we still have to get through this slate before we get to, the brand new slate. Okay, Ricardo. I just did a lot of talking, just getting people up to speed. What immediately jumps out to you from the slate? What project,
Okay. All right. So everyone knows, and if you don't know, Superman is my favorite superhero. I love Superman. I adore Superman, everything about Superman. But the one project that jumped to me, we're going to start optimistic. Okay. So the first project that jumped at me is a project that I've been asking for a long time, which is a horror Swamp Thing film.
Sure.
I
That's
have
cool.
been really excited about that. I really enjoyed the series that they had on HBO Max. I was so sad to see it's cut short, due for whatever reasons, budget or whatnot. But when they announced a Swamp Thing horror film, that got me excited because a
Right.
lot of the projects that he announced, a lot of people were like, "How do you feel about it?" And I was like, you know what? I'm not sure what tone they're gonna have. I'm not sure who's writing, who's directing. But at least with Swamp Thing, they said it's a horror film,
Right.
and that gets me excited. And I love Swamp Thing. I love that horror aspect. I think that's what makes his stuff so unique and cool, is because there's a lot of horror elements in it. So that excites me a lot to see what they're going to do with Swamp Thing. I mean, that one again, Superman is my favorite. I'm always curious. I'm always excited. But out of all the things that we heard, that's the one that made me, my ears perk the most. I was like, oh
Yeah.
wait, we're getting a Swamp Thing horror movie.
And we've heard that there's been projects involving Justice League Dark, which is a
Yes.
team that Swamp Thing is on. We have Constantine, we have
Mm-hmm.
Zatanna, we have Deadman. We've always heard these names, and we never really heard like well, Guillermo del Toro, he wanted to do a Justice
Yeah.
League Dark, and then obviously that didn't come into fruition. Maybe he comes on, and then he could have his own little corner of the DCU where he does the Justice League Dark projects. I don't know, who knows?
Could be.
But
Could be.
they've had a Zatanna project planned for a while, but I think that anything that was planned before Gunn came in, I think it's safe to say they're probably no longer going to move forward unless he
Yeah.
wants to
Yeah.
revive it under his
I feel like anything
banner.
that he had interest in from prior, it's what
Right.
we announced. It's what he's greenlighting, the Amazons and things like that. Things of projects that we've heard about for a while and it never really went
Right.
anywhere. But now they're happening. I'm like, okay, those are the ones he must have been the most intrigued by. I was like, yeah, let's do
Right.
those.
And I mean, he shared a screenshot of Deadman, and I might have read somewhere where Justice League Dark is right up his alley. It is
Yeah,
actually,
yeah, I can see that.
so that's pretty cool. Um, Well, Creature Commandos, don't really know too much about that project, but the takeaway I got from that
Mhm.
is he said whoever gets cast is now he wants to have the same actors playing the same people in the
Yes.
movies, the shows, and animation. So
Hmm.
whoever is playing these characters, apparently they're getting cast live action. They're just going to do the animation. If we ever see them pulled from that show, he said it should be the same actor. So
Yeah, I
that's
think
some content. That's continuity. That's pretty cool.
that's really cool. I do enjoy that because there have been times where we've seen an actor live action and then seen animated film, or I think most recently the Marvel What If series, where a lot of the actors in the MCU, not all of them did the voices. And I know
Right.
some people question that, like, oh well, why isn't Dave Bautista voicing Drax? And he's like, well, I didn't get a phone call. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So it is really cool to see that those actors, not only will they be in live action, but they'll be lending their voice to animation and whatnot. So it's really cool to have that connective
Right.
tissue, even in animated form.
Right. And not to be confused with their standalone movies that they've done over the years and standalone
Yeah.
shows, but if you have an animated project set in the DCU, it should
Hmm.
be the same actor. And that's pretty
Yeah.
cool that they're going to be
Yeah.
doing that. Um, I mean, it was speculated. So let's just jump in it here. It was speculated whether this thing was going to be a partial reboot or a full reboot.
Yeah.
And the odds were is that it's a combination of things. Warner Brothers Discovery loved what Gunn did with
Hmm.
the Suicide Squad. They loved it so much they gave him free reign to make a Peacemaker show.
Yep.
And while the Suicide Squad came out while we had this big thing going on in the world, financially kind of underperformed, but critical acclaim, huge everywhere.
That's what they want, and that's what they've been wanting for a long time.
Right.
They've been chasing that critical acclaim, and when James Gunn's The Suicide Squad was so high, like you said, they just gave him the keys to the kingdom, man. They were like, "Hey, whatever you just did, make more of that." And then
Right.
Peacemaker, same thing. Peacemaker was another huge critically acclaimed hit, and they were like, "Okay, that's our
We
guy.
want
Just
right.
do what you got to do."
We want more. And a lot of people feel that just with those two projects and his history with comic book films, obviously in the MCU, that was enough rapport, for him
Mhm.
to get the gig. And so it's going to be Waller. So that means Viola Davis is sticking around, and that lets us know
Yes.
that anyone in James Gunn's universe, excuse me, corner of the universe, their jobs are probably safe. You
Yeah, it
know,
doesn't seem like they're going anywhere. And
right?
I know we talked about this before. I was one of those people I really thought he was gonna scrap and reboot everything. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna when Henry Cavill was gone, that was kind of like I was like, okay, he's gonna scrap everything. I don't think Affleck's coming back. We had the rumors of Jason Momoa possibly switching over to Lobo. There was a lot of things happening at the time with a lot of rumors. So I was like, okay, we're probably gonna do a complete reboot. But Viola Davis, that was a big takeaway. It was like, wait a minute, if he's keeping Viola, like you said, it seems like a lot of his people that he brought on in the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, that it seems like they're genuinely safe for this month.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just gonna get these side ones out of the way because there's not too much we know about them.
Mm.
Lanterns. I mean, we've been wanting John Stewart for a long
For
time
a while,
now.
yeah,
You know, we're both really big fans of Justice League Unlimited. That animated show was awesome.
it
I
was.
mean, that was a universe before everything else happened because it started with Batman the Animated Series. Then we had
Yeah,
Superman the Animated Series. We have a little bit of Batman Beyond, Static Shock, and then finally Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. It was excellent. It was
yeah.
excellent. And but that prominently featured John Stewart, and that kind of gave some gravity to his name as far as one of the most popular lanterns. And you and I know this. This lantern was supposed to be in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Wayne T. Carr.
Yes, Wayne T. Carr. We were so close, and
Yeah,
and we got to see the image
yeah,
of him, and he looked fantastic. It was one of those scenes that Zack Snyder shot in his driveway at his house. You know what I mean? Like the commitment he had to doing it, he shot it, and it was ready to go. And Warner Brothers said, "Hey, like we have other plans for the character for Green Lantern. Don't show it." And there was a lot of controversy with all that. So we were very close to getting him, and we didn't. So now it seems like we're getting another shot
right,
at John Stewart. I'm not gonna lie, I would absolutely love if it's Wayne T. Carr. I would love to see
right.
him get an opportunity to do it. I don't know if that's on Gunn's agenda at the moment, but I personally, you'll see me vouching for him. He's a great
Absolutely.
actor. I'll vouch for him.
Yeah. And I haven't had a chance to look at. I'm sure everyone's saying, well, this is his chance.
Yeah.
They were ready to give him a chance once, maybe again. So,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously Hal Jordan, that's probably one of the biggest names when it comes to Green Lantern. So, I mean, you can't introduce John Stewart without at least giving us a little bit of Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
So, um, hopefully we'll get some type of space epic going on there.
You use the term what do they say, true detective,
Yeah.
with the lanterns, and that's interesting because True Detective, I have you seen True Detective by any chance?
Just season one. I haven't seen
Okay,
anything else.
it's
Yeah.
okay. Season one is phenomenal,
Yeah.
obviously. So when I hear True Detective with the lanterns, that's another thing that intrigues me a lot. Again, because I adore the show. And if you're telling me it's going to have that kind of feel, just intergalactic in space with our Green Lanterns, that's very interesting to me. So, not only do I get John Stewart, which I've been craving for a long time, but the idea that it can feel like True Detective, because I feel like at one point years ago when they first brought this up, they said that they wanted it to feel like Lethal Weapon in space. And
Okay.
I
Like a buddy
remember
cop.
hearing that. Yeah, I remember hearing that, and I was like, okay, well, Lethal Weapon, you got action, you got comedy. Let's see, but True Detective isn't really known for its comedy. So I'm
No.
like, oh, are we going to go on a much more serious approach with the Lanterns? That'd be really cool. So I'm curious, but just hearing True Detective along with Lanterns, that's got me interested.
Yeah, absolutely. And we already touched on Booster Gold a little bit. We don't really know too
Mhm.
much about him. I read about him in the comics, and then we saw him in Justice League Unlimited. So, um,
So that'll be Chris Pratt because James is gonna be like, hey, come over here and be Booster
he is
Gold,
a bit of
man.
a goof. He's a bit of a goof. See, I'm thinking Alan Richardson. Um,
Oh, I love get
you
Alan, get
know,
Alan, please. I love Alan.
he was one half of Hawk and Dove in DC Titans.
Yes, he
So
was.
he's already worked for Warner Brothers. They like reusing actors.
Hmm.
So that universe apparently is going to be done away with. So he'll be
Yeah,
freed up.
bring him over, and he's
Somebody.
really funny. Alan is really
Oh
funny.
man, he's blowing up right now as Jack Reacher and getting all.
He's
He's in Fast 10.
yeah,
Fast X.
this dude is as big as a house. Okay, he's as
Yeah,
big as a house, but he's surprisingly funny. So I'm like, he could do it.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, so now we're gonna get to the nitty gritty here. Let's talk about Superman Legacy.
Okay,
Okay, so
okay.
so before we get started with this, it sounds as though that I don't want to start this tribalism thing here. I don't want to get us labeled as anything.
Yeah.
It sounds as though a lot of the core actors that were involved with the DCEU, the core Justice League members, that is, mainly the
Mhm.
Trinity, that Gunn looks like he's moving on from, maybe that he's moving on from them, Well, he's already confirmed he's moving on from Henry Cavill for now.
Yeah.
That he's moving on from them, and now we're looking at different versions of them in this DCU, and that's going to start with Superman Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going younger,
Yep.
and but not an origin story. And okay, I mean, for me, it's just a reason to introduce the new person. And from what I read, I'm guessing it's just going to be an old school take. I would certainly hope it's not another Richard Donner, Christopher Reeve tribute, because we've done that several times now and it hasn't really worked out too much.
That's my fear. That's my fear.
I mean, some would argue that Superman and Lois, that's kind of like that, the actor anyway, but I haven't watched past season 1, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. But because to me, that's personally speaking, that's kind of boring to me, because we've seen it.
Yeah.
We've seen it several times. We saw it with Superman 1 and Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. We saw it again with Superman Returns, with Bryan Singer. We saw a Richard Donner homage film with Wonder Woman 84. And I know it's not the same universe, but we had 10 seasons of Smallville that were almost in that same vein of that Richard Donner. It was a little bit edgier than the Richard Donner movies, but it was kind of the same thing. I mean, spoiler alert, the whole series ended with the John Williams theme.
Yep.
So we've seen this. So to go back to this again, I'm a little hesitant, especially after we went for something just so different. It was divisive, but I felt like it was like, okay, we were trying something different with Zack Snyder's movies, Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and then his version of Justice League. It's a bold move. He's starting with Superman. I mean, it's a couple projects where it's his wheelhouse, but then for the first full feature length film, Superman, new actor, that's what he's doing.
Yeah, and and again, we talked about this the last time. I'm very surprised that James Gunn wanted to write it. I did not think that was I didn't think that was a character he wanted to touch. I figured it, like you said, he likes the smaller name heroes and the ragtags and whatnot. So to take a character as prestige as Superman, I didn't see that coming. So like you, I'm gonna wait a little bit more till we get some more information, get an idea of what tone we're going for, because I don't want to have that knee-jerk reaction, but like you, I don't want us to fall back. I don't want us to walk backwards. You know what I mean?
Right.
I absolutely adore Christopher Reeve Superman, Richard Donner Superman. I remember growing up watching those films, and the tagline, "You will believe a man can fly."
Oh yeah,
and
wonderful.
It to this day I still like them. I don't want people to think that I look back at them and go, "Oh, they age poorly, I don't like them." No, Superman is my favorite hero. So I really enjoyed those movies for what they were. I think they were a great reflection of the time and who I was growing up. And watching Zack Snyder's interpretation of Man of Steel with Superman, walking out of there and going, okay, like we're doing something a little bit different. And I like that. I like to see characters evolve. And for some reason, to a lot of people, Superman is one of those characters that they don't want to see evolve for whatever reason. But we tried the Richard Donner thing again, like you said, with Superman Returns. Brandon Routh, who I believe is an excellent Superman and an excellent Clark Kent. That movie just missed the mark for people because they felt like they were still stuck in those old ways. They wanted to see things evolve. We had superhero movies coming out that were getting sleeker and a little bit more edgy and whatnot. And they're like, okay, we got to kind of break away from this image that we're hanging on to from the 70s, from the 60s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when I saw Superman Legacy, I was like, okay, we might be going back to that.
Right.
But we'll see.
And the cool thing about Returns is that was one of the first times I've ever seen that, where we erased the continuity, but we started a new continuity.
Yeah.
They erased Superman 3 and 4, and then they said this is the new version of Superman 3. And that's why we got an actor that looked like Christopher Reeve. And that's why we have the John Williams theme and all that good stuff. So and by the way, I think it's hard to meet anyone that says that Brandon Routh didn't do an amazing job. He did.
He was great. Great.
It's just that movie it was kind of mixed feelings, I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some enjoyable moments,
Yeah,
For
there's
me,
good scenes in it.
there's some great moments, and he's I don't want to call it an impression, but he's doing his best job to kind of
Hmm.
embody Christopher Reeve in that movie. But um, for other people, it was just kind of like, oh, and you know, and there's always that part of the fandom that you can't please
No.
because it was kind of like with Superman Returns, it was like, oh no, same old stuff. And then Man of Steel comes out. Oh no, we want the old stuff.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
like
It's
Superman Returns is too much like the Donner films, but Man of Steel's not enough like the Donner
enough like the
films.
Donner films.
So
It's again, it's that thing that I'm like, I always feel like I'm like Superman is that one character that
right,
people don't want to see evolve. And I'm like, hey
right,
man, like we can do that. But I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. I'm not gonna
right.
have this crazy knee-jerk reaction. I'm gonna wait and see. But there's a part of me that thinks they kind of want to go back to that again because they've been trying this for years, man. They've been trying. Even when Henry Cavill came back for Black Adam, they played the John Williams score.
They did.
They got rid of Hans Zimmer, which in my opinion is one of the greatest scores ever from Hans Zimmer.
Oh man.
And they were like, John Williams. We want to hear
Yeah.
John Williams. I'm
We
like,
want to
man, they're
see if we
really
can try it
pushing it.
again.
They're really pushing. So I feel like they might try it.
Yeah.
We'll
We'll
see.
see.
Year two Superman. I feel like they got inspired by Matt Reeves' The Batman, which is it's not an origin story. It's like a second year, and I feel like they're doing that with Superman to see what's happening.
Yeah.
2025. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna get an acting announcement soon, maybe within the next 6 months, and because they got to start shooting soon, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And so as of this recording, it's early 2023. It's January 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying within 2.5 years, this movie will be out. It's planned for
Yep.
July of 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, touching on the Superman, we have the Authority movie, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of like it was a curveball because it's not
Yeah.
really a property people have really talked about, making something, not recently anyway. And it's speculation, and the only thing we can come up with is that maybe Gunn wants Superman to face the Authority. And
Perhaps.
I mean, for me as a fan, I feel like, well, if that's the case, just do the Elite,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's why the Elite were created in the comics as DC Comics' take on the Authority, which once
Mm-hmm.
again they hadn't acquired the rights to. And the Elite has shown up several times in the comics. Manchester Black is one of my favorite Superman villains. He's excellent, and they've showed up several times in the comics. They did an animated film based upon the Superman versus the Elite. I'm guessing maybe he's doing this because he doesn't want to do the Elite again. He wants to do the Authority, and once again, it could be completely wrong. It could be a standalone movie, and with a sort of continuity, because he says most of these, if they're not in the Elseworlds, they're all connected.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
DCU. So
Yeah. And I mean, look, James has a record of taking names that people aren't necessarily too familiar with and being successful. Like again, critically, like again, when people think about Guardians of the Galaxy as a household name, not many people knew them, and he turned
yeah,
them into a big property. The Suicide Squad, again, regardless of, it didn't financially do well at all, but critically, it was a
right,
smash.
right,
So if anyone is going to attempt to do this with characters that not a lot of people know, James Gunn is going to be
right,
that guy to try it.
exactly. And I mean, I don't know how involved he is at DC Studios, but at the DC property, DC Comics, I know Jim Lee. That's his one of his projects that he birthed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he'll get his blessing and
Yeah.
perhaps some type of production credits. Maybe I mean, to
Mm-hmm.
me, I would want Jim Lee if he was the creator of the property. I would want him as a producer.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
was making it. Then with Paradise Lost, now I don't think you can meet somebody that will disagree. Themyscira is gorgeous, no matter
I've
what
always wanted to go
movie
back, man.
no matter what movie or project. Whenever we went there, it was so cool, and the the women that they chose to play the Amazonians, I mean, just such strong women, and women of all different shapes and sizes and ethnicities. It's just such a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, just showcase of people in a beautiful setting. And
Yep.
um unfortunately, we won't get Diana Gal Gadot. She's not going to be there because apparently she's not
Nope.
born yet. Depending on
Nope.
how far back we go, maybe we get Hippolyta.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we get some of the women we've grown to love through the Wonder Woman movies, um and whoever we saw in Zack's Justice League. So
I've been wanting to go back, man. Again, that
yeah,
place is beautiful, and again, like I find the Amazons they're so awesome, man. They're
Right.
strong, they're fierce, and everything in between. One of my favorite lines of Zack Snyder's Justice League is when they shout, "Show him your fear," and they all in unison say, "We have no fear."
So good.
It, as a father with two daughters, man,
Right.
like watching that, it's so good. So I've always been like, can we please go back to Themyscira?
Yeah.
We've got talent, we've got talented actors. Let's go back. So the fact that they finally greenlit it, I'm excited about it. I'm very
Yeah.
very excited about that show.
And it's really cool too. Like whenever we saw the Amazonians, they're always depicted as warriors, man,
Yep.
and I feel like we had a little bit of 300 influence from Zack
Mm-hmm.
because he made that movie and it was just like, yeah, but now it's going to be all women. I did all men, now we're going to do all women. And it was
Oh,
so cool that he did that, and
mm-hmm.
even in Zack Snyder's Justice League, when we had that war, between man, the Amazonians, the Atlanteans, like when you saw the Amazonians, man, it was just like, man, those ladies, man, they're
I
really
love them,
awesome.
man.
Yeah, they're great.
They were arguably one of my favorite aspects about Zack's DCEU was the
Yeah,
Amazonians,
man.
man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh boy, Brave and the Bold, Damian Wayne.
Great.
So we're gonna
Ugh.
so while it can work because we don't need to do it,
Mhm.
we're gonna skip over Dick Grayson. We're gonna skip
Yeah, my
over Jason
boy.
Todd. We're gonna
Mm.
skip over Tim Drake. We're gonna go
We go,
straight to
mm.
we're gonna go straight to Batman having a kid with Talia al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul's daughter.
Yup.
There we
Yup.
go. Boom. So
It's
maybe we get some flashbacks. I don't know.
it's such an interesting move, right? Because
Right.
one of the things that and again, this was never me. I don't think this was us. We've always been really good with watching a movie as it is, being,
Right.
shown the movie. Okay, we're going from title to the credits. That's our story. We're good. Let's go with it.
Right.
But majority of the fan bases, would say like, hey, we need films to build up to certain events. We need films to build up to these characters. So to start off your DCU to have a Batman who has bypassed Dick, Jason, and Tim and has a son with Talia, it's like there's a lot of story that just got
Right.
thrown out. Like, we're not doing that. And again, that's not saying the movie's going to be bad. That movie could be phenomenal.
Right.
It's just an interesting move considering that a lot of people are like, hey, we kind of want to see these characters built, especially that Superman Legacy, year two Superman. He wants to start fresh. He wants to go back. But with Batman, he's like, you know what? Let's not go back. Let's go further. Let's go further down the line. So I'm curious if like you're going to introduce Talia, the DCU Talia in the
Yep.
same movie that you're introducing Damian, that you're going to possibly have flashbacks to other Robins, and you're talking about Al Ghul.
Right.
There's a lot
Right.
of things to
The League of
introduce.
Assassins,
The
which we
League of
haven't seen in this
Assassins
universe yet at all.
at all.
We saw
So
they were
again,
they were known as the League of Shadows as well,
yeah,
and we saw them in Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. But as far as this, this DC universe, we haven't seen them yet. So it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot
a
to unpack.
lot. A
You know.
lot, and I'm curious to see how the fan base reacts to such a move, because I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to be like, oh, we have Robin, and they'll be like, yeah, wait, which Robin is that? His son? Batman has a son? Who's the mother?
Right.
Talia. We haven't met Talia. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm
It's going to be a
curious to
lot
see
of
people's
questions, and
reaction.
but the move is interesting because apparently it's not supposed to be Ben Affleck,
Mm-mm.
but it's supposed to be an older Batman.
Mm-hmm.
But we already have an older Batman. We have Ben Affleck.
We
So
had the Batfleck, man. We
yeah,
had
we
him.
already had him. So you're just recasting for the sake of recasting at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is speculation that maybe this is the movie that Ben wants that he would get Ben to direct.
Could
Because
possibly
Ben
be.
loves Batman so much.
Loves Batman.
He wanted to, that movie with Terrio that we will always come back to.
I hope
Um,
it leaks. I hope it leaks. I
Ben
want to read it
Affleck's
so
the
bad.
Batman. Yeah, Ben
Mm-hmm.
Affleck's the Batman. He wrote it, was gonna direct it and star in it. It would have been special according to sources. So,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't get to do that, but maybe he gets to do this, and
Yeah.
hey, who knows? Shot in the dark. Brave and the Bold takes off. He gets to direct the Batman movie, but with this Batman.
Yeah, it's possible, you know
You
what I mean?
know?
Because the thing is, and like, I had to get this through my head too, and I feel like a lot of us do. James Gunn is kind of overseeing all this, but
Right.
he's not writing and directing all these projects. So
No.
all these projects are going to feel different. They're going to feel different, different directors. So, like you said, the idea of he said it, James said it. We're trying to get Ben Affleck to direct a movie, and I'll tell you right now, man, any hesitation that I have at this moment for Brave and the Bold, if you told me in a
Right.
few weeks Ben Affleck was directing Batman Brave and the Bold, you've got my money. It's
Yeah.
it's Ben Affleck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing we want to touch on, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Now, oh man, there's a lot to unpack with this one here
There
because
is.
all right, so spoiler alert, if you want to be surprised with The Flash, so much is leaked about that movie, but apparently there was an ending filmed
Mm-hmm.
and it was supposed to include Henry Cavill Superman, Gal Gadot Wonder Woman, Michael Keaton Batman, and Sasha Calle Supergirl.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know how many different universes they were from, but they apparently they were supposed to be, not only in the movie, but there's a little end credit scene or mid credit scenes showing how they're going to be involved moving forward. And apparently, with these new plans, apparently that scene has been scrapped, and the new scene, we don't know what that new scene is going to be, but supposedly, this will not be the Supergirl that we get introduced in The Flash. So we're once again another actor altogether. Yeah. So it's a lot to take in. It's a
It
lot to
is.
take in. And so the big thing about all these projects here is that Gunn is making it a point that he will not be using the Trinity as we've come to know them. No Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman that we've gotten to know over the past 10 years. Henry
Mm-mm.
Cavill as Superman, Ben Affleck as Batman, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. They will not be those faces anymore for right now.
Yes.
For
We
right
got a
now.
whole we got a whole phase one with no Gal Gadot. An entire she's not there. I'm like, we've got an entire new DCU slate and it doesn't have Wonder Woman in it.
Yeah.
That is, we just got her. I know it feels like a long time, but realistically, what was it, 2017? Wonder Woman 1 came out. Was that the
Yeah.
year?
Well,
It was something along
BVS
those
was her
lines.
first appearance,
That's her
2016.
first appearance, and
Yeah.
she gets her first solo movie, and it's just like
Yeah.
we really haven't had her in live action that long. You know what I mean? Say
Right.
what you will about Wonder Woman 84, whether you like it or dislike it or whatnot, but it breaks my heart a little bit that I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
our first phase of the DC on the James Gunn, and there's no
Yeah.
Wonder
He's not
Woman.
even bothering recasting her. He's just saying we're going to the island before she was born because it
Yep,
sounds like he doesn't want to be bothered with recasting her right now. Well, either that or maybe he wants Gal to come back, and
possibly.
he doesn't want to do that. But he's already, to me, it's like he's kind of semi closing the door on Henry and Ben
Mm-hmm.
by doing these recastings,
Yeah,
and with the way the Flash movie works with the multiverse and Flashpoint and all that good stuff, he's got his work cut out for him because geeky folks like us that read
mm-hmm.
comics or have been into superheroes for a while, we can understand why actors or will look different in a
Yeah,
new universe. Gunn's got to pull this off. We don't know what the plan was for Andy Muschietti's movie, The Flash,
mm-hmm.
but now he's got to kind of find a way to use the Flash as an anchor. And he even said that in his video. It's kind of like resetting the universe.
Yeah,
So he's going to have to explain why these actors look different, why it's different storylines, and then why his stuff is still around too.
yeah.
And it is possible that when a crisis happens, that can happen, where some people
Mm-hmm.
will look the same, some people look different, or everything's going to be different. It could be either or, but he's got a lot to pull off, so people won't be confused. And you can tell people, well, there's Elseworld stuff going on over here, but and people have been accepting of that so far. But now you're changing up things again, changing things up again.
Mm-hmm.
So the general audience says it's going to be kind of tough to explain this to
Yeah.
them.
And I think that's where it gets a little tricky is with general audiences. Like we're in a situation right now where I thought they were going to do away with Elseworlds. I'm not going to lie. I was very concerned about the Batman Part 2 with Matt Reeves. Before
Yeah.
the announcement today, I was very worried. I was like, guys, I don't know what's happening because it seems like James was brought in for everything to be really cohesive and tight. So I thought they were going to do away with Elseworlds. So you already are in a situation where amongst general audiences, you're going to have two different Batmen. In The Flash, you're going to have Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, but then you also have Matt Reeves Robert Pattinson, and now you're introducing a new for the Brave and the Bold. So while you have Brave and the Bold, you'll have Matt Reeves' saga still continuing. So now you have two Batman in this universe. So with general audiences, that already in itself is like, well, there's more than one Batman. You know, again, for us, it's a little bit easier to accept.
They're Elseworlds. It has nothing to do with the DCU. That's
I've been
easy
very,
for us.
I like Elseworlds stories. I wanted more. After Joker, I was like, give us more. And then when they made Matt Reeves the Batman, I was like, dude, make more, leave it on its own thing. So again, it's about that general audience. So the Flash, like you said, has kind of a lot it's got to do, you know, and I feel bad for the Flash movie because the Flash movie I feel like has gone through reshoots and changes and alterations. You had things with Ezra, you had things with Ben Affleck coming in, you had things with Gal, with Henry's out, no, he's in, he's filming now, and now we go, wait, we're actually recasting, we're doing a younger Superman. Sasha Calle might not be our Supergirl moving forward, and that breaks my heart because I remember watching that video where Andy says, hey, and he pulls up the suit. And I just see her get so emotional. I'm like, oh, this is her big break. This is her big deal. And I'll be crushed if she gets to do it just as one time. And that's not it. But hey, you know, James is gonna do with you know, what he wants, with the story he wants to tell. We'll go from there and see what happens. But man,
the Trinity,
idea.
Wow, what a bold move. We're gonna get rid of the Trinity just like that.
No Trinity. None.
You know?
None.
So
Yeah.
And then going with the Elseworlds thing. So all right, so we have Robert Pattinson Batman, then we have the Brave and the Bold Batman. We're gonna have Gunn's Superman with Superman Legacy, and then if the other Superman movie gets made, which will be an Elseworlds story, we're gonna have two Supermen now. You know, we'll have the African American Superman, and that can go anyway. That can be Val Zod, it could be Calvin Ellis, it could be a brand new Superman with a name we don't know. We don't know yet, you know, if it goes through. But to me, that was mentioned in the articles that, I mean, Gunn is not against Elseworlds stories. Yeah. You know, and maybe it makes his job easier that he doesn't have to tie everything all together, you know, or worry about if other directors want to come in and do stuff on their own there.
Yeah, there's a small part of me that wish we got to keep Henry Cavill in an Elseworlds Superman. You know, I was like, oh, let's do an Elseworlds Superman. Hey, just keep Henry. Let's just do it. But hey,
have him be the actor in the DCU, the new DCU, or just continue the SnyderVerse as an Elseworlds type deal, which is funny because it started as the proper universe. But...
Yeah, exactly. Like it was like, well, okay, if you don't want to use him for your main DCU anymore, I was like, yo, just do what you were kind of doing at the end of Black Adam. You kind of reintroduced Henry in a new light. I was like, oh, let him do one. Let's give him Brainiac. Let's give him one more. Let's give him, because I've always wanted Henry. Story. Yeah, I wanted Henry to just, if he was going to leave the role, I would have loved to see him get just, you know, the farewell movie, like I wanted it. But that's just a personal bias, you know what I mean?
Right.
But hey, you can't win them all. But again, he's not against Elseworld, and I'm happy about that. I am very happy because every once in a while, like, I like cinematic universes, but I do think that at a point it becomes like a crutch. Like there's certain movies that, you know, could be great on their own, but then you've got to worry about all this connective tissue and pieces. And sometimes that can cause fatigue or be a little overbearing. Sometimes you're like, man, this movie would be great if it wasn't so focused on connecting. So I'm very happy that we're keeping Elseworld stories. I am.
Yeah, absolutely. I lost my train of thought.
Dude, there's a lot.
There's just a lot to take in.
There's a lot. Like you've got a couple series announced, and you've got a couple movies announced. Now, again, this has happened multiple times with Warner Brothers. I would tell people, don't get too attached to the slate.
Plans can always change. Right.
A lot of things can change. We've seen slates change for DC. We've seen it change for Marvel. We've seen it change. So again, we know that this is a 10-year plan. Okay. We can have projects delayed. We can have something changed, something altered. So we shouldn't. I mean, we can be, if you're excited for something, be excited for something. You know, but don't be too glued to it because anything could change at any minute. Like you just don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say. Apparently, it's been speculated if Zack Snyder's Justice League is canon or not under Warner Brothers Discovery. And if the Snyderverse had continued, apparently that was going to be, quote unquote, an Elseworlds story.
Yeah, the Snyderverse.
It would have just continued on. Justice League 2, Justice League 3, maybe Ben Affleck's the Batman movie mixed in there, maybe Man of Steel 2, you know, and then that would have been and then that was it. And then we could have a full reboot.
Yes, yes.
You know, I think a lot of fans would have been okay with that, to just close
Yeah.
out Snyder's story, that we could finally, you know, close it out, because with the studio cut of Justice League, which quote unquote that's supposed to be canon, they kind of, for something that's considered canon, they barely referenced it with the other movies. I mean, I think Aquaman referenced it a little bit, but
I remember Aquaman. I think they only mentioned Steppenwolf.
Yeah,
and that's basically it. It's like, oh, you helped defeat Steppenwolf, and that's kind of the end of it. You know, they don't acknowledge a lot of the things that happened in Chernobyl. Like, it's not brought up again.
Right. And Suicide Squad, zero mention of anything from beforehand.
Yeah, like it's very, again, it's very, very limited, and it's just it's funny because we said it numerous times. If if the studio had just let Zack Snyder make his universe, it would have been done and rebooted.
Would have been done by now. 10 years, and then we would have been done.
This would have been year 10. And we would have, everything would be cohesive, and this and this and this and that. But you know what? Things happen. Studios, we've gone through numerous heads of DC, and now they finally got, you know, they're like, we got James. So again, the next few years are going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, and in a way, like, I'm wondering if Warner Brothers Discovery, if they saw what Marvel Studios was doing with Disney, and they said, well, no, we don't want it to end. We want to continue on and on and on and on. And it almost felt like they kept throwing those darts at the board until something hit, you know. And because a part of me is always going to, as a fan, is always going to wonder how Zack Snyder would have wrapped up his story. And you know, we've seen the storyboards, we've seen the, you know, Project Justice League, shout out to Project Justice League on YouTube, and we've seen all that stuff, but you know, we'll possibly never know how Zack would close out a story. Now, maybe he gets to do it in the animated form one day. Maybe he gets to do it through a comic book. Pipe dream. Maybe he gets to do it on HBO Max one day. Who knows? You know, that would be a reason to get, you know, Ben Henry and Gal back, you know. There was also possible speculation that the door is not fully closed on those actors in case they do a Crisis. Because then if we do a Crisis, it'll be a situation where you get to see the actors that are playing multiple superheroes in the same project. So if you folks, if you ever watch the Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Arrowverse on CW, it would be like that, where they brought back all the actors that played the characters over the years in TV, you know, and then they showed you just glimpses of each universe. So
and it was an interesting statement to read today, that, you know, he said, like, he doesn't see any reason why DCEU actors can't continue playing the roles that they're playing. And it's very interesting because, again, it's the only one that cannot, according to, based on the new story, was Henry Cavill. Like, he was the one that was like, hey, we're moving on. But, you know, I read that they're like, hey, they always envision Aquaman as a trilogy, so it looks like we're going to get. I was very worried. I was like, oh, I don't know if we're going to get Aquaman 3 again. You know what surprised me? There wasn't a mention of Lobo, and that was heavily teased. That was going around the internet, and people were talking about Lobo and whatnot. But for the first phase, it wasn't mentioned at all, and I was like, oh, okay, and well, so maybe.
So maybe Jason Momoa has been really happy online because he got told Aquaman 3 is going to happen. I don't know.
Maybe it could be Aquaman 3.
It could be,
or maybe he's producing Lobo down the line,
right?
Down the, because you know, it doesn't have to be now.
Even if it's a recast, it would still be weird seeing the actor that played Aquaman for all these years just magically be somebody else, like all of a sudden. You know?
And James said that as well. James said no one's going to be playing multiple characters.
Right.
He did say that, so I was like, okay, all right, so maybe. All right.
And I've seen it online. It's funny. Like, the only two actors from the Justice League that showed up in Peacemaker are the ones that are getting to continue on, apparently, because Warner Brothers Discovery, they want to continue with Ezra Miller. That's the reports, even after all the stuff that they went through. And then obviously with the news of Aquaman 3, but you know, it was the silhouettes of Gal and and Henry on there, and they didn't even bother putting Cyborg or
Nope, they was like
or
no
Affleck.
Cyborg.
We're not even gonna put either of them on there. So
I'm still hoping for justice for Cyborg, man. I want Cyborg again. I want Cyborg, but
yeah,
again, hey, the first phase, he's like, no Cyborg. I was like, okay, I'm sad.
yeah. I and it's one has to wonder, when are we gonna see the Justice League together again?
I mean,
Because this is,
there's no
man,
mention of them whatsoever.
yeah. I mean, and if you're building from scratch, then maybe we'll get to see it in the next phase. I guess like there's 10 projects. And you mean to tell me the
Yeah,
last one isn't a Justice League movie or some type of team up movie? All right.
it's like no, and yeah, it's when you look at all the movie lineup, you're like, all right, you're opening with Superman Legacy, right? You're opening with Superman Legacy. So we got Superman Legacy, we got Batman Brave and the Bold, we've got Swamp Thing. These are the
Right.
guaranteed
And
films.
some of these
They're
are shows
films.
too, which is fine. You know, that's
Yep.
fair.
Yep. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like, all right. So this is your first phase, but again, you don't have mentions. So I'm like, is phase one going to be building to an event? Are we building up to
Right.
an event? Or are we just introducing characters? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who knows? It just might be a collection. Like, hey, they might just make movies where they just acknowledge other heroes. Like, oh yeah, they exist. They're not
Right.
gonna mingle. They just exist within
Yeah.
this continuity in this universe.
And there's a rumor that Warner Brothers Discovery actually considered giving Zack a call to finish his Justice League trilogy
I read that. I
before
read
this
that as
happened,
well.
before
Yes,
the
before this,
Gunn,
before they announced.
right?
Yeah,
And who knows what would have happened, you know? But
yeah.
they're before they made the decision to have a soft reboot, as we can call it now, a soft reboot
Mm-hmm.
with Gunn and Saffron. Um, I mean, there's rumors that Dwayne Johnson wanted the job, you know, with $7 or
Yeah.
seven, at least $7 Productions, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
take things over. But sadly, Black Adam, you know, critically and financially, you know, didn't deliver to the point that they wanted to. So, I mean, maybe he lost the job out to Gunn,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, and they did the professional thing. Say, hey, he's not a part of the first phase, and maybe they can
right?
come back to it later.
Maybe,
I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that I think Rock is probably going to move on. I think he's going to
right?
go and try something else. I think James is going to move on. I think that if they continue with Shazam, I don't even know if they're going to continue with Shazam. If they continue with Shazam, I think that they're going to do it with Shazam and Black Adam being tied directly like they are in the comics. So they
Right.
might just completely reboot that. Who knows? I'm not too
Yeah,
entirely sure.
it's a lot to take in, you know. Uh, I hope it turns out okay.
Yeah.
Cautiously optimistic. These are heroes that I've grown up with. These are heroes I've been following for many years now. And while I am sad that we will not get a final closed chapter to the heroes that Zack Snyder brought into the DCEU, I'm just going to be happy for what we've had so far.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
all we can really do is look at the Flash as maybe our way of saying goodbye to everybody.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the, you know, or just these last few movies, because technically speaking, if we don't see Henry again, then Black Adam was our
Black
goodbye,
Adam. Yep.
you
Yep.
know.
And
And
it was interesting because James said that when people were asking James, like, why are you keeping certain DCU actors and not Cavill? And his response was Henry Cavill was never cast. He said
right,
Henry Cavill was never cast in my DCU. He did a cameo, and that was the end of it. You know what I mean? So that, like you said, that very well might be the last time we see Henry Cavill in that role. That might
right.
be his farewell. And they're banking on Flash, man. They're saying like James Gunn mentioned it. He goes, he's seen the Flash, and he thinks it's one of the greatest superhero movies he's ever
Right.
seen. And I'm like, they're pushing Flash hard. So they either truly believe they have something special, or they need us to believe it so we can go there, watch it, and see where everything is going.
I
Because
mean, I know you're not using the actors anymore, but why reshoot that scene? Well, I guess you have to reshoot that scene because you're promising people you're going to see these actors again,
yeah,
and that's why you're reshooting that scene, you know,
yeah.
which is sad,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
sad
and
because,
we'll
you
see.
know,
There's a lot of speculation
they
one way
might
or
leave it
another.
in, they might not, they might use it
Yeah.
as a deleted scene. I mean, you could always do something where all you really need is Ezra to
Mm-hmm.
just
Yep.
introduce the new universe, even if you film that one scene with the actors, you know. And there's rumors that we might see Gal in Shazam: Fury of the Gods. There's a rumor. We
That
don't
is
know
right.
if that's true or not. And obviously, the Flash is supposedly going to be our goodbye to Ben Affleck, who said goodbye like 3 or 4 times now at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah. And I'm like, oh, are we gonna give Ben his goodbyes? Are we finally gonna give it?
Yeah.
He went on Jimmy Kimmel, they hung up a jersey. Like he's like, I'm not Batman anymore. And he was like, Psych, I'm Batman, I'm in Aquaman too. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And
He's done
that's
now. He's like, no, I'm in the Flash.
right. And that's another thing. Like, if we had gotten this for the Flash, it would have been our first time seeing the actors playing the Trinity together in a movie again
Mm-hmm.
since, since Justice League,
Yeah.
well, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It would have been really cool seeing all those people again, and for me, when it was just a rumor, I was talking to you and I said, man, that's bold. We're gonna get the Trinity. You're
Yeah.
gonna get the Trinity together, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman in a non-Justice League movie for the first time, since then. Because people forget Batman versus Superman was a big deal.
It
We
was.
we introduced the new Batman, and it was the first
Mm-hmm.
time Batman and Superman ever teamed up. And by the way, while you're still getting used to that, we're going to introduce you to the first film version of Wonder Woman, and we're going to see all three of them in a movie. You
Yeah,
know?
that Trinity shot that's in the trailer
Oh
and in
my
the film,
goodness.
like I'll never forget the sheer like emotion that I felt seeing him on screen and then just standing there in a line and Wonder Woman right in the middle,
Yeah, it's
and
great.
she's there just and I'm like, dude, come on,
And
that's poetic.
and no matter how people feel about that movie, they loved Gal in that movie. Gal
Yeah,
was a scene stealer in that movie, man, and she was
I've heard
very early in the role.
I've heard many people argue that her entrance is one of the best entrances for a combo
Yeah,
character in a film. It's great. It's absolutely great.
yeah,
And we only got her for a few minutes in battle, but in those few minutes, she
it's really
embodied
cool.
Wonder Woman so well,
She did a
and it
great
was it
job.
was so great. It was so good watching it.
So, um, man, so iconic. Just these characters, and speaking of iconic, no mention of Margot Robbie yet.
No,
And
we haven't heard anything about Harley
Gunn has said
Quinn or anything like that.
he
No.
really likes her. He got to work with her on
Mhm.
the Suicide Squad. You talk about perfect castings. She's been amazing as Harley in
Yes.
all the projects. We've seen her in Suicide Squad,
Hmm.
in Birds of Prey, and the Suicide Squad. So
Yeah.
we might see her again. We might not. We know Barbie is supposed to be coming out as well,
Hmm.
and that's under Warner Brothers as well. So for Warner Brothers Discovery to have a woman playing both Harley and Barbie under
Yeah.
your banner, that's good for them. That's
They.
good for
Yeah.
them. And just no disrespect to Lady Gaga, who's going to play the character in Joker sequel, or uh the Harley Quinn TV show.
Hmm.
Kaylee Cuoco. No disrespect to her, but just live action. Uh, it's been Margot. And we're
Yeah.
hoping it's going to continue being Margot.
Yeah.
For James Gunn's DCU. That would be really cool, and it would be cool to see what he would do with her.
Yeah. It was. I'm surprised, like you said. There's a few names that I'm surprised to see, and there's a few names I'm surprised that we didn't see. Again, like Margot Robbie being one of them. I wasn't
Right.
sure if we were going to do a I mean, we got Birds of Prey. I know Gotham City Sirens has been something that has been rumored for
Yeah.
years and years, and people want to see it. I said maybe under James Gunn, because I know when he did the Suicide Squad, he mentioned that he loved working with her and he wants to work with her again. So
Right.
a lot of people were speculating again, like, oh, maybe they're going to green like Gotham City Sirens and
Right.
whatnot, and we get another appearance from Margot Robbie. So it hasn't, no announcements yet, and it could be a variable, a lot of reasons.
Well,
it could be scheduling, it could be this, it could be that.
Well, this is only chapter one. That's what he said.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
Gunn and Saffron, apparently they're under a 4-year contract.
Mm-hmm.
So the speculation is this is the first 4 years. That's what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And but the trades have reported that it's an 8 to 10-year plan total.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know how many of those years this chapter one is supposed to entail. They haven't said it. All they said announced was the project's coming out in 2025. So
yeah. And they can add more. They can add more. Like, can
add
one
more. They
more
can
here,
take away.
one more
We
there, take things away.
we've been here before with announcements. We've seen,
Yep.
maybe nothing exactly like this, but we've seen things like this before.
Mm-hmm.
Comic Con, WonderCon, CinemaCon.
Yep.
DC fandom. We've seen many things like this where things were announced and they didn't come into fruition. So things can always change. And once again, these are characters that we grew up with, and we will find a way to to consume this media.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know I
yeah,
will. It's just out of pure
yeah,
curiosity because I want to see what he does, and
yeah.
I want it to succeed. And it's while while the DCU has had a fan base, it's just been hit or miss under Warner
Hmm.
Brothers Discovery. It's been hit or miss, and maybe it's time for a change as far as that goes. And it's interesting. This is an interesting time right now because uh, we've been seeing just people going through fatigue as far as the MCU goes,
Hmm.
and there really hasn't been any other properties, because they're now sharing Spider-Man with Sony, but
Hmm.
technically it's still under the MCU banner. And then Disney acquired Fox, so we haven't seen any X-Men movies because they were under a different studio. So now
Hmm.
everything is under, Marvel Studios, and then the alternative is Warner Brothers Discovery, with the DCU. This is not counting the other properties on Netflix and Amazon and all that good stuff, separate comic book universes, so to speak. So um, maybe this is a time where Gunn can capitalize on the fact that some people are feeling fatigue with the MCU. Maybe they might say, okay, well, James Gunn is a fresh face. He's a face that we
Hmm.
support because we liked him, when he did what he did with the Guardians and MCU. We're going to
Yeah,
see what he does. Maybe not directing and writing every project, but as the overall producer and the
yeah.
Kevin Feige role. So maybe the timing might be good for Gunn to succeed in this role.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be quite a few people who are going to support and want to go see these movies because they're fans of Gunn. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like they love the Guardians films. And James Gunn has been attached to Marvel for a very long time. Guardians 3 isn't even out yet. He's still going to promote Guardians 3.
Yes.
That movie's going to come out, and if that movie is a huge hit, people might go, "Oh man, James is so great. Oh, he's doing DC stuff. Let's go watch some of those movies. Let's see what he's planning." So, like you said, it might be at that point because there has been some fatigue. I know, along with myself and a few others that I've spoken to when it comes to some of the Marvel stuff. There's a lot. There's just so much
Right.
happening that sometimes you can get a little burnt out. One of my favorite things about sagas is sagas have an end. I like
Right.
endings. I'm a big fan of endings, and Marvel
Yeah.
is a machine, man. They just keep on going. So like you constantly feel like, oh man, or like we can close to the finish line. And Marvel's like, no, we got 24 films coming out next week. And you're like, oh man, I'm tired. So this might be a good time for him to come in there and say, hey, like, I'm gonna give you something that you haven't really seen,
Right.
because as much freedom as he has in Marvel, they got to pull him back a little bit. We know what movies and tones and James Gunn's like to
Right.
explore. And with Warner Brothers, they kind of gave him free range with the Suicide
Right.
Squad and Peacemaker. So he
Yes.
might be able to implement some of that into his movies. He might be able to give other directors a lot more
Right.
freedom and say, hey, make the movie you want to
Yeah.
make, man. You just got to make
Well,
sure it fits here and make it.
the challenge is the major properties because I'm pretty sure Warner Brothers Discovery isn't down with anything involving Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman being rated R. Plain and simple.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Financially,
no,
that is not going to happen. Not
no.
anytime soon. Maybe an
Nope.
Elseworlds story, but not in the main continuity where we say this all the time. Movie business. It
Yes,
is
it's
a
a
business.
business. It's
It's
about
a
making
business.
money.
They're trying to make money and continue making
Hmm.
money. So, um, I mean, Swamp Thing, maybe that could be rated R. Maybe as a horror movie.
Yeah.
The show was rated R. So,
Yeah. Very. Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
The Authority. That's a property people don't really know too much about. He can get away with stuff on that one too. But
Hmm.
um, as we know, the Suicide Squad is rated R. Peacemaker is rated R.
Yep.
So chances are Waller will be rated R if it's in the
Oh yeah.
Gunverse. You know,
Anything related to Suicide Squad, I'm just assuming is rated R straight out the
yeah,
gate. Again, Swamp Thing, that would be a great pull because again,
right,
Swamp Thing is one of those characters where again, not a lot of just general household audiences are familiar with Swamp Thing. So it being a horror film can tap into that horror
right.
community and they can go watch it and the comic book fans can go watch it and whatnot. And it could work. I mean, a rated R Joker movie worked and made them over $1 billion.
Right. And then,
So
right.
I
But then the
mean,
old regime were so reactive. They said, all right, well, now Birds of Prey can be rated R. It's like, no,
yeah, and then
just
and then
because it
that
worked.
one,
Right. Just because it worked
yeah.
once doesn't mean we got to keep going to the, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Like it was an interesting time because Logan had succeeded under being
Mm-hmm.
rated R and then Joker succeeded. So now they're thinking, okay, Deadpool, two Deadpool
Yes.
movies, rated R is like, okay, let's give it a shot again, and you know, no disrespect to Kathy Yan, I believe is her name,
Mm-hmm.
but that movie didn't need to be rated R.
It's one of those. And it's funny because I enjoy the movie, but then you watch it and you go, "Why is it rated R?" And it's like, "Oh, it just has the F word a
Yeah,
lot."
just a lot
I'm
of
like, "It's a
cursing.
lot," you know what I mean? But yeah, it didn't financially work out for them in that regard, unfortunately. And I'm
Yeah.
sad because I thought they were all great. I thought everybody in that movie was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an interesting story to say the least.
Ewan McGregor was amazing in that movie.
Yeah, he was
He was
fun.
so funny in that movie, and I loved him. It was very different. It was very
Right.
very
Well, it
different.
was very
But
campy, and we knew
yeah,
that, you know.
it was super entertaining, and I had a lot of fun with it. And that's yeah. But it's one of those movies that if you're like, oh, if it was PG-13, it might have done a little better. It might have done a little
Right.
better. You know what I mean?
Right. So that's where we're at. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest here, Ricardo? I know we're trying
Man,
to keep
yeah.
things
Okay.
mostly optimistic
Look,
while we're on
I'm
the air
going
here.
to.
But you could,
I'm
but
going.
please express your grievances if you can,
Okay. Yeah.
or
So
your
obviously,
concerns.
yes, I'm going to try to be as optimistic as I possibly can. I don't
Right.
want to have a lot of knee-jerk reactions
Of
that
course.
make me just like you know what I mean? Because it can happen. Like I had a very bad knee-jerk reaction when Henry Cavill was let go.
Mhm.
I was just like, oh, why would you do that? When I heard that, the possibility when Wonder Woman 3 got scrapped, I got very scared, and I was like, oh God, what does this mean for Gal? And now we're doing this and doing that. But again, I'm gonna try to remain optimistic. Look,
Yeah.
I have to realize, I do, and I know a lot of people do, and I said it earlier. We have to understand that James is just kind of overseeing everything. The only movie that he's truly tapped into is Superman Legacy, it seems, where he's writing and putting that whole process together, and obviously Peacemaker too, and probably the Waller series, but that's his wheelhouse. Again, I'm nervous for a Superman Legacy film. And I'm not saying James Gunn doesn't have the potential to do it. It's very different. It's very
Right.
different. It's a very very different thing. I never would have thought in a million years that James Gunn would be writing a Superman film. But hey, he's going for it. So let's see what happens. Again, I hope we don't go back to an old-fashioned attempt at nostalgia, just trying to
Right.
grab onto that Richard Donner feel. I want to get away from that. I want us to explore growth with Superman. We'll see what happens.
Right.
I'm a little bummed again. I have a grievance. I'm bummed that in the entire phase one, no Trinity. That we mentioned it
Yeah.
like a million times. It makes me sad that we got Wonder Woman, and now for an entire phase we're not having Wonder Woman. And
Right.
look, things can change. Obviously, we can have a movie come in. Like who knows? Maybe
Right.
James, a couple months from now, and goes, "Oh, hey, what? Guess what? We got a Wonder Woman film coming out. Yep, and it's coming out at blank year." And I'm like, "Oh wow, what happened?" You know what I mean? So things can change,
Right.
but
And I mean,
um,
let's be clear here. Like in Man of Steel, we had a lot of flashbacks to the farm, and we
mm-hmm,
actually went back to the farm in present day.
yeah,
And in Zack's Justice League, we went back to the farm again. And
mm-hmm,
the farm was just a source of just family and love and that bond. And we were able to do it, but we were able to do it without it being a carbon copy
yes.
of the Richard Donner, John Williams stuff, you
Yeah,
know?
look, I could go on all day about Man of Steel. I
I
love
know
that
you
movie.
can.
So I'm not gonna do it. But yeah, so I'm very curious. I'm very curious. Things I'm excited for. Again, the Lantern, especially when you say True Detective. Like again, I like that. I like
Right.
that sound. A horror Swamp Thing. I love that. A
Yeah.
lot of the other things I want to wait and see. I want to see what kind
Right.
of tone. I want to see the tone, right? Tone is very important to me. And I want to see what kind of tone his universe is going to have in general. I want things to feel different. That's what I want. I don't want everything to feel like a James Gunn production. Again, it's nothing against James personally. It's just I want to feel different. I want this movie to feel like this director. I want this movie to feel like this director. I want this movie to feel like
Right.
this director. That's what I'm hoping for. So,
Right.
yeah, we just hey,
Right.
hope
Because
for the best.
I mean, with all due respect, the Suicide Squad just felt like a rated R Guardians movie to me.
Yeah. And
For
I've
the
heard
most
that. I've
part,
heard that.
it was like
I've
a
heard
rated
that.
R
Yeah,
Guardians movie, and
I've heard that.
but with DC characters,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
And I think that's why people clung to it. They were like, "Yeah, this what it reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy."
right, so I think we spoke into existence. We're gonna do it again. If Ben is done playing Batman and he wants to direct, then you get him to direct Brave and the Bold. That's the move,
Yeah, you get him to do a Batman movie.
and then who knows just what creative influence he can have for
Mm-hmm.
whatever plans they have, because Gunn, once again, he's not writing every single project. He's overseeing, he's producing. It's the Kevin Feige
Yes,
role.
yes.
So we're going to speak that into existence. And And if this is goodbye to the people that we have enjoyed seeing, then so be it this next year.
I will follow them in all their other movies. I'll be like, I
Yeah,
got you guys. I'll follow you,
absolutely.
gal. You're in the new Fast and Furious movie. I got you.
Yeah, I mean, who's to say Zack doesn't call them up and reunite them in his Rebel Moon movies,
Hey,
or
look, Zack is busy,
or
man.
in a project on his own one day? You know, he's not one
I'll
to shy
tell
away
you.
from reusing old actors that he's worked with before. You
I'll,
know,
I'll tell you right now, man. He's got Rebel Moon. He got Ray Fisher back. If Zack
yeah,
Snyder makes anything and he brings those three back, he's got Ben Gal and Henry. Bro, I'll pay you twice. I'm like, oh, just put them
yeah,
together again. I would lose my mind.
yeah. You know, maybe in another movie altogether,
Yeah,
or a Rebel Moon movie. Who knows? You know,
yeah,
or an Army of the Dead movie, because he's still doing stuff
yeah,
with that too. You know,
yeah.
so but that'll be cool. All right. Folks, that was our discussion on DC Studios and James Gunn's announcement for the new slate, the Gods and Monsters Chapter 1. So
Yep.
please give us a like, share, and subscribe. We would really appreciate it. We also appreciate it, as always, if you could leave your comments below. Please let us know how you feel. We thank you for all of your support. Please let your friends know about us if you enjoy watching us, if you enjoy listening to us. For Ricardo Segura, this is Anderson Marchek saying thank you for coming to the panel.